Right, hello, and welcome back to the Splatoon at Purdue Collegiate Invitational 2023. My name is Omazen. You may have seen me earlier during pools, and here I have...
Cynthia,
Yeah,
I'm here. I'm new for
alright,
today,
yeah.
at least.
So, today we are going to be starting our brackets, where we're doing single elimination, and eventually going to also do a third place match following the match that's about to be streamed, and also a finals match where two teams will fight for first place. I believe we're going to be starting off with Bash and MSU Frib. Um, both of those teams have been actually relatively equally matched, everything considered. Bash in the CCA is ranked as Div 4, and I believe MSU Frib is Div 3, if I'm not mistaken, so they're on the relatively same skill level. Any kind of initial thoughts on your end, Cynthia?
Did they play earlier already? For those who might not be already caught up.
Yeah, they have both played earlier, so I think this may be a rematch. I believe everyone has played so far against each other, so we're gonna be seeing them try to take on that, try to get that first and second place matchup.
Yeah, this is really where it counts for them. The first couple games for them was really just to see where they'd be put for seeding, and now they're playing to win. And it looks like here, if I'm not mistaken, that's zones on Burnwater.
Yeah. We love Brinewater over here. One of our Splatoon team members from PPP shares a little bit of familiarity with his name with Brinewater, so we have some inside jokes relating with that. But yeah, we're starting off with Splat Zones on Brinewater Springs. This is a bit of a controversial map mode in the community. Most people aren't the greatest fans of Brinewater, and although zones can be okay in certain situations, I think one of the biggest issues with it is the pressure backlines have here. What are your thoughts on Brinewater?
Well, it's a very good map at creating a sort of, let's say, kind of coordination type perspective, because that's really, I think, what takes this map. Because it's really much a map where if you put a few things together, it pretty much instantly caps. And really the only way to get a major hold on this map is not only to get a good combination of using specials, you also have to be focusing here on teamwork as well to maybe get man advantage and work off that. And really, this is a hard map to push back into, so...
Right. We're starting off the match now. Bash on orange, MSU Frib on purple.
Yeah, immediately we're going right to, looks like they're bringing out the Octobrush, and looks like the Octobrush is taking an early left here. I don't know if the machine recognizes them, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Ooh, it looks like Nemo goes down on their right tree on MSU Frib's side. His flanking not working out quite the way he was hoping it would. We're seeing MSU Frib launching some, what we like at Splatoon at Purdue to call friends, onto the field. And there's a Booyah Bomb from MSU Frib again. They keep throwing out these specials, but what we notice is that they're not actually landing a solid push just yet. A lot of these specials are kind of staggered, and they're not creating as much pressure as they would necessarily hope.
This is actually an interesting situation, because in those first 30 seconds, I would have expected for most higher level teams to see kind of Bash really take a major control, but what I really saw here was this MSU team. They had good coordination, but they weren't getting picks, and for Bash it was really the opposite.
We see Nemo again on his favorite flanking spot, and he goes down yet again. Cynthia with the Octobrush in the zone, trying to maintain pressure on their side. We see MSU Frib throwing that Booyah Bomb to get Cynthia out of there for a little bit. Riley dying in zone and ultimately turning over the zone to MSU Frib.
It looks like Octobrush took in a zip, but they didn't really have anything to work with it, especially because MSU had gotten two and then they used that zip. It really left them vulnerable. And here, this is really MSU's game for a lockout, but it seems like Bash is taking some picks back.
Yeah. That zone cap came out of nowhere, honestly. It looks like MSU Frib had a really solid holdover zone, but then Bash just kind of swung in there right under their noses off to the left side and pincered them pretty well.
Yeah, you can see here a bomb got this T-Tech here. And it looks like MSU's going to get 2 again. And now they got 3. I'm really looking at potentially getting 1 or 2 of those people up onto that plat. 52's kind of stalling out. I like to see a little bit more mobility, but I do think that they have a good chance of bringing it down to 50 if they coordinate well here.
Yeah, so far MSU Frib has been holding down their push. We do see Bash starting to get a foothold, though, as the zone keeps going back and forth, back and forth.
I think they're doing a good job starting to poke pressure in, but I think at the very end of the situation, right when they're close to retaking, but not quite, is really when they kind of make a little bit too soon of a move, and that's really what's allowing MSU to take all these points off Bash. And now it's just a 52. Are they gonna get it? It looks like the Ray put some pressure, and yeah, it looks like they got it. But now for Bash, really, getting that bow up is good. Although they have the Hydra looking at that bow, it's not going to go well for the bow at first.
So far, Bash has been doing a really good job now at re-solidifying their control over the zone. We do see that Booyah forcing the bow back, and the, as we like to call them, friends also creating pressure. And the zone's ultimately going to go back over to MSU Frib. Although Bash, I don't think, is completely out of it yet, even though they do have a few down.
Well, I think MSU here is actually starting to take more advantage of their holds. It looks like they're in a lot better positions than I saw maybe 2-3 minutes ago. Now, Bash has got 2 specials. They pop it without their Octobrush alive, which could backfire on them. It looks like they still aren't getting paint. Junior's down.
Ooh, that Booyah was devastating. That Tri-Strike has been a really key portion of their pushes and getting them started off, but that particular Tri-Strike didn't do them too many favors. We see the Octobrush trying to cause a distraction and barely getting out in the nick of time from that auto bomb.
And with the Octobrush's Zipcaster there, it looks like MSU's gonna get the zone back. They have a really good shot of getting it here.
Yeah, and that's going to be game for MSU Frib, taking 1 point in this set.
Yeah, I was looking at the end there, that Octobrush, they kind of zipped forward, but one thing I didn't notice is that 2 of MSU players are actually around the corner there. So a good idea on that zip is not only taking the forward motion, but moving around, using your own main and swim abilities to get those picks.
We're going to be moving on now to Tower Undertow Spillway. This is a pretty interesting map mode. It has some haters. Personally, I kind of weirdly like it. What I like to call Y, where you have the little median in the middle of the map, can create a lot of interesting situations and fights. And this can be this map can really quickly turn into a snowball effect, where we see each team slowly taking more and more control over the game. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think, well, first of all, this is a map where I saw a lot of it at the beginning of the game, and now I feel like it's being played a little bit less and less, especially as some of these new maps are coming in. In regard to kind of how the map functions, it's a little bit kind of a crossfight in mid, but once you get to maybe the second checkpoint, it's kind of a situation where you're pretty much pushing right in their base. So most cases, if you can get that second or third checkpoint, you're in a really good spot, and that's the point of kind of, you get it, you start to switch towards, okay, I got that second checkpoint. If you're the first team to get it, that's a situation where you start to switch in defense and then start to look at preventing the enemy from getting that back. And it looks like they're already going.
Alright, yeah, we're heading right into this next game here. We're seeing the machine on the side of Bash yet again, and Frib also having their own machine. Honestly, relatively similar comps here. We have some flanking styled weapons, and although Bash lacks a backline, I think having that additional pressure and ability to move forward quickly will be beneficial to them here.
On this map, machine can actually function very much stall-oriented weapon. it's not necessarily the weapon, it's how you kind of play with your team that really is what matters.
Ooh, that autobomb almost getting a pick off on Nemo. Fortunately, he barely got out of the way in time. We see the snipe on the side of Bash going down to MSU Frib's machine. And MSU Frib starting to try to solidify a push, although Bash doing a really good job with that big bubbler at slowing down MSU Frib's counter push.
Now, MSU, like, their machine had the right idea there to get rid of that bubbler with the Booyah, but it looks like from Bash, they had another special to counter right into that, and it looks like, well, it looks like they got a pick there, and let me explain how he got that from such a far range. Tri-Strike, which was the special that he used not too long ago, will one-shot a Booyah Bomb.
Yeah, no, that was a really good play on their part, although it wasn't fast enough in order to actually take out the player before they threw the Booyah Bomb. We do see Bash so far holding that snowball-y lead that I was talking about a little bit earlier. It seems like Frib's trying to move around to the right side, although those tri-strikes are forcing them to scatter a bit and cause a little bit of uncoordination. We do see that 52 gal take out that brush, which stalls that push, and the junior on the tower from the side of Bash going down as well. That's probably going to be the push for Bash from the looks of it, especially with the super chumps causing a little bit more havoc.
Yeah, this is really what Bash hit there was kind of the point where you kind of don't really need to push anymore on this map. You're close to the third checkpoint. You pretty much got in their base. I think they were a little bit kind of clustered in that push, where I think certain players could have easily caught that out and taken care of that a lot sooner, but for Bash, it looks like they're pushing again despite being one person down. Now, if you have paint control, it's nice to have that tower in an area where you can keep that paint control, but let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, we do see MSU Frib rotating over to the left and ultimately taking out that tower push from Bash. The T-Tech kind of solo pushing it for the most part. The junior putting down that big bubbler and solidifying that area of the median for them. And ultimately, Bash getting a wipeout on MSU Frib. Alright.
Yeah, no, the machine there, really, in that early part of the push, one of the things that, when you're taking fights, if a player has equal range, getting high ground is very important when you're taking fights. And you can see here, this Hydra's actually got good high ground. He's kind of shutting down Bash's push right now. But earlier, for example, the machine was kind of in that center area on the low ground, but that allowed Bash just to walk in with a bubbler and a few other players and take that bubbler quick.
Right, it looks like Bash, once again, trying to cause that same amount of initial pressure for a push with the tri-strikes with some success, although it does look like that Booyah Bomb just thrown a few seconds ago ultimately killed their momentum. I think Bash does have the strength and the special power in order to hold down their control of mid, but we will have to see if, right under the right circumstances, we could see MSU Frib start a strong push.
Well, I'm noticing that Bash is actually using this bubble, just not necessarily to advance their own push right now, but to keep MSU from pushing, and I think that's a really good mentality to have when you're in this type of position. Now that the Hydra was in a good spot, and I think Bash kind of threw what they had of a push away in that moment. So let's see what MSU does here.
Yeah, Hydra just seemingly getting a triple there a few seconds ago. And honestly, like, the backline here can cause a lot of really important pressure for MSU Frib. And it seems like they may finally start to get a few points, hopefully, on the board. As, yeah, there we go. We see them hit checkpoint 1. Not too hard to clear, but Bash just took down 2 of their members already, as I was saying that.
The machine here is on a tear. I mean, I think one of the things that MSU players didn't really consider when fighting the machine is what I would call fighting engagements. And it looks like Bash is going to take the game.
Yeah. There was that GG tri-strike.
Yeah. But either way, with fighting engagements, what happened kind of at the end there is I think MSU players got a bit desperate. I saw the 52 walk into that machine with the 52 machine engagement. typically that's a winning engagement for the 52 if you use that law, because it allows you to close the distance, which was not played in that situation. So
Yeah, like as we were mentioning before the set started, Bash and MSU Frib are relatively on the same level when it comes to skill and just their overall, uh, really just like vibe in general. I would argue. We're heading off to Rainmaker Scorch Gorge now, where we have 1 point on each side here. So it could really be anyone's game at this point, I would argue. Rainmaker Scorch Gorge is sort of like the previous two maps, where it can very quickly become snowbally, although I do think those key choke points are going to provide hopefully some pressure for each side to be able to solidify their own pushes and holds.
yeah, so typically with this map, what happens a lot is that with teams that kind of have a sense of the game, is that what will happen is that one team will get to checkpoint, and ideally they'll try to preserve maybe 1-2 people at checkpoint so they can keep that push going past checkpoint, and winning pushes for that reason can get to like 30-20 points, very close to the enemy spawn.
I think that really getting that initial hold of mid is going to be important at the very beginning of this match. Getting that first checkpoint isn't terribly hard, at least when you're going down the main right route. Although if you go for that cut on grates, it could be interesting under the right circumstances if they get a necessary push for that.
I think this is a map that's very much one that you need kind of displacement to really move people, and it doesn't seem like we're really getting that in what Bash is running. As for PvP, or no, excuse me, MSU, their NZAP, their balloon special will actually force Bash to start shooting at the balloons, which provides some of that displacement pressure.
See Bash get the initial pop of Rainmaker, although MSU Frib very quickly taking over control of mid following that. Dr. Brush trying to get a little bit of a foothold over mid, but ultimately having to back up to their podium on right, as we can see right there. And MSU just really holding down that zone with the balloons.
A good cleanup from Bash. I think MSU they could have acted on that Octobrush faster to get a quicker check, but as you're seeing here with Bash, I'm really looking for, with the shot, to kind of move in through that left, kind of open space through that mid.
Oh, that was a nasty autobomb death. That NZAP taking out one of Bash's members very casually like that.
And
We'll have to watch out for chickens.
MSU is just going to be, for the most part, just set up really in mid here.
So far, MSU has had a really solid control over mid, and there they get a wipeout, solidifying their check push.
Now, what will be interesting to see is, like I said, I've seen winning pushes get in the 20-30 range, and it looks like they're going to get about that.
Yeah, there we go, right there. 3 of their teammates going down, although we already have a 1v1. Nemo barely pulling through with his machine in that and kicking out MSU from their base. Although they still have a lot of paint and just space in general to make up here.
Yeah, there's a concept here that called like implied paint control. A machine obviously isn't going to paint a lot, so what it's going to do is it's going to leave some of that back paint for someone like a junior to cover. In that way, it has the bubble, which you can see right here.
Yeah, and as you can see, that big bubbler, although initially helping, I don't think is going to do as much for Bash as they were maybe hoping. Nemo does get that pick on the 52, which is going to be a big help for them as their Slayer is effectively down now. Although the machine on the side of MSU Frib is still maintaining a healthy amount of pressure, and we're kind of at a standstill right now between the two sides.
Exactly. And MSU, I think, really Junior has a bubble, which will allow Bash to provide a little bit of stalling pressure, but at the same time, MSU has the ability to displace. And that double pick right there, MSU has another opportunity to push at Bash. They don't need to necessarily push all the way to 30, but they can maintain healthy map control.
Yeah, all MSU has to do at this point is just hold down their map control. They do have enough time where they could feasibly try to do another push, although it does look like they're going to be playing it safe for the most part for now.
It looks like the shot here on Bash is kind of almost got flustered by all of MSU. Uses Azuka, but it doesn't really accomplish a whole ton.
Ooh.
And it looks like he makes a break in here. Let's see what this shot can do.
Yeah, Warmonk going in head first, and unfortunately ultimately dying, although he was able to take out that Rainmaker earlier. We see the machine from MSU holding down that pressure on Bash's ramp. They do retreat, but MSU still has solid control over mid, which is going to be a problem for Bash as they try to make their initial first push, so.
Yeah, and I think Bash in a lot of cases, I think the reason why Bash is struggling to really get a hold is because MSU is basically controlling chip damage, and Bash is not responding to that in a meaningful way and having honestly good awareness of that.
As we can see, Bash is very heavily reliant upon their bombs in order to initially get that first push in. And MSU, with their pressure from just chip in general, and also, honestly, more killing power, has been really holding down their fort. We do see Bash finally getting 1 point on the board, although they won't get much farther than that, unfortunately. The juniors trying to hold down that Rainmaker with the brush, although it looks like they probably won't be able to get that pop or push.
Well, it's a 3v3. It looks like the junior is trying to block out an area, and the junior gets a bomb pick on that knot.
That's going to be really important for them as they move forward here. MSU still holding down with the walls and the super jumps, especially around that pillow area and the ramp where it's a really key position to hold.
I think Bash there got a little bit desperate in the last 15 seconds, and MSU just gets the free hold off that.
Yeah. We saw Bash really struggle here to get a foothold on the map and have that overall control of mid and whatnot in order to push in the first place. Although we did see that last match from MSU as well, so it's going to mostly come down, I think, to the map modes and the dynamics we see from each team.
So right here, the next map here is going to be Clan Blitz on what I believe is Manta Maria, if I'm not mistaken. And here, a lot of people, this is one of the new maps, so it's only been around for about a few weeks in this game, and these teams are, from what I know, new in Splatoon 3.
Yeah, both Bash and MSU Frib were formed following the release of Splatoon 3. Bash in October of 2022, and I believe MSU Frib was formed around January of this year, actually, so both relatively new teams, but in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't seem to matter too much as we see MSU Frib having that foothold and pressure over Bash so far.
Yeah, so it looks like one of the things that Bash is going to have to think about is coordinating with each other and making coordinated attempts to start to push at MSU, because one of the big things about this map is really catching players off guard by off angles and working with your team to push people in unfavorable spots. That's what this map is all about, and if you don't know what the map looks like, you'll see what I kind of mean in probably a minute or so.
Yeah, Street getting way bigger in Splatoon 3 has honestly caused like a lot of different sort of changes in the way teams approach that whole area of map, in my opinion, so far. It not being quite as cramped and narrow provides a lot of benefits, although it also gives more room for each side to ultimately play around with, and that's caused some interesting dynamics. Also, just the whole like massed area and the two bunkers can create a lot of interesting pressure in mid, as both teams have to sort of have balance of control on the ground, but also in the air, essentially.
So it looks like MSU is using the same thing from last game. As for Bash, it looks like they swapped out for a C-Jet.
Yeah, the junior swapping out for a C-Jet. That's really interesting, actually. They're trading out their support for a backline. As we can see, starting off here, both sides trying to put pressure on their respective bunkers. We see the C-Jet ultimately go down to the machine, and also just honestly a lot of chaos, a lot of back and forth right now. MSU Frib does seem to have more pink control, and right as I say that, they take control of bunker. Nemo trying to take that control back, but ultimately dying into a trade with the other 52.
Yeah, this map is involves a lot of close-knit skirmishes and really just fast, sudden plays. And I think one thing Bash actually, I could say, had reasonable logic on for picking off that C-Jet was, I think their rationale was kind of trying to get more chit for the rest of that team and possibly outranging the Knot as well, but it looks like the C-Jet's already been picked off multiple times, so whoever's playing it probably needs to be a little bit more aware of their surroundings.
Possibly indeed. We see MSU Frib kind of struggling to find clams on the map, as not many seem to be spawning, but which also provides an opportunity for Bash to start to get a foothold back into mid, as MSU Frib is a bit more scattered from their clam collecting. We do see MSU Frib finally get a ball, though, as they start to put more pressure on Bash's street and just right in general.
The Jet actually did something really good there, is where they recognized where someone else was fighting and actually crossfired for them. That's a really good way to initiate 2v1s, and while that pick wasn't successful, I think it was definitely the right direction.
Absolutely. We see MSU Frib finally get a push on Bash here, scoring the first points of the game. MSU Frib with 49 right now, and it looks like that's probably going to be the end of their push, as the Brush puts pressure on MSU and kicks them out of their street and basket zone. It looks like Bash is trying to put enough pressure on MSU ahead of time where they can start to collect their own clams. The Brush ultimately feeding into their street, although that did cause enough of a distraction for Bash to pick up a few clams.
Yeah, Dr. Brush is already back in, and I guess one of the things to think about from these teams' perspective is that if MSU wins another game, they win the set.
Yeah, this is a best of 5, I believe, and due to that, MSU is just one match away from solidifying, going and moving forward in the bracket. Bash is in a really kind of particular spot here, as they have to really get a solid push on MSU. We see that Tenatech go down, unfortunately, in a really bad spot. The Octobrush also going down and creating a 2v2 situation. But MSU having more range is going to ultimately provide enough pressure for them to kick Bash out of solidifying their push and area over mid they took.
Well, it looks like here the machine is taking a flank. Let's see if the Knot pays attention to it. And
getting a
they
double
get 3.
triple. Oh my goodness.
Oh!
All right,
They gotta move. Get that pity in. That's a quad.
Oh, quad! Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they gotta move now.
This
Pop
might
that
be
booyah.
Bash's ticket into the next round and going into a game 5. We see, and there's that lead we were talking about.
And Bash still has man advantage, which just went away now. Now it's really Bash has a minute to defend here.
Yeah, Bash doesn't have enough time to really make another push unless if MSU really fumbles hard, which isn't very likely considering the control they've had overall so far this match. We see MSU trying to pick up clams, and ultimately they have a pretty decent chunk of the economy on their side. Although Bash so far has a strong foothold over mid. You see Warmong throwing clams out even, as he's trying to make sure that MSU can't get as many points as they would necessarily like to have.
So when you're on the winning team in Clam Blitz, you still want to be collecting clams, because the more clams you collect, the more clams that the enemy team is not going to be able to get.
Have them. Oh no, and we see, oh gosh.
It looks like the strike got rid of them,
no!
though.
Oh, and that's gonna be set. Wow. Bash really held on for a good while there and got that push they needed. Unfortunately, MSU barely sneaking in that power clam and ultimately another in between those different tri-strikes that were being thrown out. What a close set overall, honestly. That was honestly really crazy.
It looks like they lost a little bit of setup at the end in overtime, and that really happens at every level of play where people just fumble at overtime. Like, I've seen that happen at high top level players. So is that really anything that anyone would be surprised about? Not really. It's gonna happen at some point. It's just a matter of who.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are inevitable in the funny Squid Game, and we just witnessed quite a few of them, honestly. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this first round, I believe. Bash and MSU Frib. MSU Frib ultimately taking that win over Bash. And we're now going to go into, I believe, our third place match, where we'll be seeing the two following teams go on. We're going to cut short. We're going to cut to a short break and see you all in a few minutes. All right, welcome back everyone to the Purdue Esports Collegiate Invitational for Splatoon. We're going to be streaming our third place match in just a few moments. We have Bash going up against PPP. That match we were just streaming beforehand was going to be the big determiner in who was ultimately going to be playing this match we're seeing right now. And Bash and PPP are going to, as a result, be fighting over third place in our Invitational today. Any thoughts so far, Cynthia, on the two teams?
Well, I actually haven't seen these teams play each other that much. I'm not totally... Those of you who know me for looking at a completely different part of the scene, so if you can fill me in on their history, go ahead.
Yeah, so Bash and PPP, I started to mention this earlier, they were both formed at the same time in October of 2022, and both of them are Div 8 Ludi, and both of them are also Div 4 in CCA, so they're roughly the same skill level, and they both really have similar team vibes, so it's going to ultimately cause some certain, I guess, dynamics between them. They're both on the same level, just about, and as a result, these are going to probably be some pretty close matches all around.
I guess we'll see. I mean, we saw that Bash took a game off the MSU team they fought. I don't know how PPP did against in their matches so far.
Alright, well, it looks like we got the maps up here now. We have Tower Inkblot Art Academy for our first match. Tower on Inkblot has always been... there's been a theme so far today. A lot of snowbally map modes, honestly. We see Bash pulling out really their usual comp, and on the side of PPP, we have a comp that isn't all too unfamiliar and not that relatively similar, honestly, to Bash. So we're gonna see them both come in right now. One of the players from PPP going up on that stack on right, trying to cause some havoc for Bash in the early game, and ultimately being successful at that. Mayday taking out 3 players, it seems like, from the side of Bash.
So it looks like both these teams in the opening tried to go for initial fights. You'll see kind of in some higher level play that some players, obviously, when crab spamming is a lot more common, players will spam, paint their spawns to get crabs or tri-strikes before they even take a fight. Here, both teams went for the fight, and PPP won that fight, and it looks like they're going to get a pretty good push with this map. If you can get past the enemy team's bats, you have a pretty good push. And here it looks like Bash is going to stop that charger.
Yeah, Bash putting a halt to their push for now, although PPP is still in Bash's walls as they are playing around bats and their flat. Ultimately, seems like Bash is in the process of, as you can see, getting that triple kill.
That's Warmonk right there.
Yeah, it's taking out most of PPP and kicking them out of their plat. We do see...
It's just a quad!
Wow! A delayed quad. There we go. From the side of Warmonk for Bash, and Bash really seems to be taking a strong foothold of the whole game in general right now, after that really harsh push from the side of PPP.
Okay, very, very good movement right here. I like that Warmonk is taking that position on the enemy bats. That's the area that if they can control, Bash will get at least to checkpoint 2.
Yeah, PPP seems to be a little bit scatterbrained right now and struggling a little bit to figure out how to kick Bash out. We do see a really good tri-strike special from Mayday, though, that does help kick some of the players out a little bit. And also Mayday getting that really important kill on the machine, who has probably been one of the biggest problems for PPP so far.
Yeah, and it looks like the Charger here, they're going to opt to not have the Charger ride tower and have someone else do it. And I guess the real question here is, where is that Charger going to be, and how much of an influence are they going to make in these aggressive fights? They've got 2 people on tower that isn't really great.
Mayday making some really key plays for their team right now by taking out key players from Bash's side with a tri-strike, helping out her teammates. by dropping down off of the tower. And PPP ultimately gets one more point on the board for them and creates enough pressure to buy themselves some time against Bash here.
I think both these teams, they're doing a good job of kind of moving in on the picks they get. Could they be a little bit faster off it? Sure. But for where they're at, they're definitely making progress.
Yeah. As mentioned earlier, these teams are both relatively on the same level, and as you can really see that with the havoc both teams cause with their tri-strikes, with just how the tower's been moved in general, how team plays.
And that right there is, sorry to interrupt, but that's kind of a critical point, where that Octobrush got killed by this Junior, and now PPP's getting another full push off of it. And the Junior is continuing this push, getting a pick on that tower. Are they going to keep it going?
That Junior taking out the T-Tech who was doing that tri-strike maneuver. And as we can see, PPP is about to get on a third check again, scoring at least a few more points. That vacuum pausing and just creating that defense that PPP needs in order to get a few more points. Drumar ultimately getting the KO for PPP as we move into game 2 now with 1 point on the board for PPP.
So if you're PPP in this point, the main goal here is to really just use this momentum from this first game and bring it into the next 2 games.
Which will be Rainmaker, Sturgeon Shipyard, and Clanblood Scorchgorge. 2 map modes that I'm sure plenty of us have had our fair share of fun with.
Oh, yeah. I've played these maps so many times.
Especially Rainmaker Sturgeon, as it is a Splatoon 2 original map. But heading into Rainmaker Sturgeon, I think if PPP is able to properly hold that momentum, they will be able to bring in their strengths into creating a successful push that may not get them the KO they necessarily need against Bash, as Sturgeon Shipyard's KO podium is a bit hard to reach for most teams without it being too snowbally. But I do think we'll see the possibility of PPP getting yet another win against Bash.
I will say, though, if they do manage to get it too close to the final goal, that is pretty much a certain win, since it's very rare that both teams actually get that close to the goal in a close match. In regard to the paths they have to push, their options really are one very tight controlled path that's really easy for the enemy team to chip at, which is a short path that gets you through points very quickly. The other path is a much slower, longer path that's a lot more open, but it gives you a lot more room to defend yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that's going to be really important for Bash to keep in mind as they move forward is to really take advantage of team plays, and especially having, I think, Warmonk take charge. We saw a lot of successful pushes that he initiated for them in that last match, and I think capitalizing and playing off of his power as a player will be really important moving forward into this next match.
Both teams playing a Flingsa now. Did they get that from me?
Oh no. We see a backline on the side of PPP to hold their ground, while Bash has opted to have a full aggro comp, essentially.
Well, they're using Dapple Dualies. I don't know if there's any influence behind that, but...
yeah, we may see some beacons being played here from the side of Riley. Or actually, let me correct myself, that's not the funny beacon weapon, that is the other one.
It's close enough.
It's close enough. It has the spirit of it. We see Drumar popping off that crab, getting, I believe, 1 pick off it, and creating enough pressure for PPP to really move forward here and get a decent initial push against Bash. It seems like they're trying to go for the runway on left. The Brush ultimately taking out the Rainmaker and almost getting a pick off that E-leader too, who barely escaped in time.
The tough thing I think that Bash really put themselves into is that with their comp, if the Flings that has Rainmaker, and the Splash and the Junior die, they basically have no option to defend themselves, so it basically forces both shooters to play incredibly back.
We see a really close push from Bash, almost getting a few points of lead over PPP, although they just fall short. We see PPP trying to get that jump, and they do. That brush in the Zipcaster form ultimately taking out the Rainmaker, though, and stalling out PPP's push. And Warmonk, as I was mentioning earlier, coming in and ultimately halting it for now.
I think both teams are really eyeing the repop. You can see Drumar kind of on the fork there, just trying to get it, but it looks like it's gonna go to Bash. And is that Warmonk right there, possibly?
Yeah, Warmonk ultimately taking out JG5 and halting their last-ditch attempt to try to get podium. We do see PPP still ultimately grab the Rainmaker, and they're trying so hard to go on left, but at this point, it might be worth considering trying to go
down,
right
and I can see Warmonk easily see that leader who jumped out. And now, I think Warmonk is trying to tell, painting the path, and this is the slow path here.
And they die mid-animation for the podium capture. We do see... Oh, they do ultimately get the checkpoint, though, as that Flingza fails to take out the Rainmaker in time.
I will say, Warmonk here is still getting picks, and it looks like Bash still has their foot in the game here, and you can see both these teams are opting for the different Rainmaker paths, with PPP opting for the very direct route, while Bash opting for the slow route. And here, Warmonk gets another with the Zuka, gets two.
Taking out two.
Just the leader. I think he's going to help the Flingza find the Rainmaker pop. And it's Warmonk that's going to be the one that takes it, while the Flingza go gets two picks.
Two picks on them. Mayday, the other Flingza, trying to keep Nemo back, as we see Mayday ultimately take out Nemo from beating just the tad.
It looks like the other Flingza's going to start getting some picks back in too.
Yeah.
And it looks like this Flingza's close to missiles. And are they going to be able to pop and run at their jumps that Bash is getting in?
We see PPP kind of clumping up around Spinner, which can have its benefits, but mostly you don't really want to do that too much, as it is a very narrow space, and one bomb can quickly take you all out.
Well, you can see here, PPP is kind of pushed back, and Bash really is going to be the next team to start making a movement here. Octobrush kind of poking the ledge. Is close to Zipcaster. The Reef Slider went in. If you're the Octobrush, maybe move in on that. And the Rainmaker, you've got less than a minute left. If they have a crab out, you're making the right call. Maybe you actually push left.
The crab going down too, over on that right snipe position. And the Rainmaker, unfortunately, going down as well on the side of Bash, but...
It looks like the leader may have sniped that Rainmaker.
Yeah, they may have well. We do see PPP trying to get that control back here with the E-Leader's pressure and the missiles from that Flingza. Although, it seems like, overall with bomb pressure and just overall intensity from the side of Bash, that PPP probably is going to struggle a lot to keep their overtime.
PPP's got two down. They gotta go now before this Octobrush Zip can get that Rainmaker pop. And they gotta find that Zip.
Yeah, they have to move right now, unfortunately.
Well, it looks like they're gonna clean it.
Yeah, that brush cleaning up that Rainmaker with help from the Inkzuka, and ultimately making this set go 1-1 for Bash and PPP.
Yeah, and it really looks like in this type of situation, I think PPP had a lot of opportunities here to move up and capitalize off areas that Bash missed, because while Bash was getting picks and making a lot of initiative through just outright fights, Bash actually left a lot of areas on the map unpatrolled.
And we did see that initial pressure I was talking about earlier from PPP as they were trying to ultimately bring that momentum from the first game into this next set. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful with that, though, and it's created this interesting situation where PPP is going to have to pick up that momentum again if they want to win this Scorch Gorge game against Bash, whereas Bash has established their momentum and just, they've warmed up now, they know what they need to do. They played against MSU Frib just a little bit ago, and they know what really is going to get them that win.
Yeah, for sure. Like, in this case, Bash here, what they need to kind of do is really make PPP really much uncomfortable here. And for PPP, what they need to do is hold Bash off from really getting too close to you. Because when they did that in the TC game, they kind of had some steamroll pushes, because you can see the way that PPP got a lot of their pushes was they kind of had a few chip weapons kind of move in at the edge of their range, where with Bash it's typically Warmonk or the Octobrush getting a direct 1v1.
We see so far both teams have been relatively standoffish from each other and a little afraid, honestly, to push overall from what we've been seeing. And I do think that what's going to ultimately determine who wins this set for third place is going to be whichever team is willing to make those important flanks and willing to take those risks.
I may have seen it. Well, I just saw a Kraken roll. I can confirm that.
Yeah, both teams have a Kraken.
There is an influence, probably, I'm guessing, for the Kraken roll. And the 96, I can't say about that.
Yeah. The Krakens are going to be really important here, especially on clams, as you're able to cheese by doing a super jump over to a teammate that has the Kraken enabled. As we see this 96 here, creating some pressure, taking out that junior, and pushing that roller back.
The 96 here is really doing everything I'd ask of a 96 and maybe the opening push here, and is gonna Kraken in. What are they gonna do? They get one. This Kraken's doing a really good job at kind of patrolling things, but now they need to keep themselves alive against this roller. That's huge. The PPP's Kraken is down. Bash needs clams, though.
Yeah, and they do get those clams ultimately, although they do trade two of their team members for that first power clam. It seems like both of them are forced to back off. Warmonk ultimately going down to an E-leader snipe, and Riley being forced to back up, although she does go down as well to that 10 attack on the side of PPP.
Well, it looks like here, one of the things I say is you can get the initial push, but if you go for that initial push, you need to be able to find a way to push yourself back in quickly, because otherwise the other team is gonna get that free pity. They're gonna have resources to move back in and not only reach where you hit, but surpass that.
Yeah, we see a lot of pressure here from the E-leader and that roller from Mayday as well, although she does ultimately go down during that fight with the 96. The Kraken on the side of Bash really just causing havoc again and forcing Rain to jump out as well from those tri-strikes from Bash's side too.
And you can see here, Bash is just trying to get map control here. I think Bash needs to be careful not to really approach PPP too close, and it looks like they're doing a good job of doing that. As for the Charger, that Charger's looking at them and really preventing pushes. Would have really tried to trade clams that zap before they died, and it looks like they're going to take a trade, and I think it's just Warmonk here who now is killed.
Yeah, and just one out on the side of Bash as a result of that defense. That's the defense PPP really needs in order to make sure that Bash can't get a killer blow on them through a push.
And you can see here PPP doing a good job. This roller is doing a good job just cleaning up picks. I would like to possibly see them give that pity to someone else so it allows them to take kind of a more aggressive position, or even pop that Kraken to get someone else in the objective.
Yeah, and that's something we see where the junior ultimately picked up that ball and passed off to another teammate from the looks of it. The Kraken kind of having to get deployed a little bit early from the side of PPP just so that they can maintain pressure and take out the brush from Bash, although they ultimately go down to their other Kraken player.
looks like here, Bash is doing a good job just keeping map control, and PPP, they don't have any painting weapons, and the Junior just respawned. And this Roller's just walking in. Bash is going to be able to continue if they can get more clams.
Oh, wow. We see Bash keeping up that push. As I was mentioning earlier, PPP needs to be really wary of preventing a killer push from the side of Bash. And that's unfortunately what we see right now as PPP goes down to Bash's 78 points. PPP needs to move now if they want to try to gain a foothold over this match, as there's only 1 minute left remaining.
Well, you can see here, Drumar just got a pick. They have a bubble down. A pretty good spot for them, honestly.
But no balls yet, though, unfortunately. And
they get the pick. But they also die in the process.
Yeah. Mayday deploying that Kraken, unfortunately, a little bit not the
A
best
little bit.
time.
I think they were trying to go for the basket, but decided to change their mind, I guess.
Yeah. PPP, fortunately, is able to gain a foothold of the mid over Bash, although we do see this Kraken and Tri-Strike push come out in order
The
to get
defensive
the JP.
Kraken here from Bash, and it looks like it does its job for the most part, although PPP is in a good spot, but PPP needs to keep themselves alive so that they can move in and get this leader to score a pity in.
Yeah, and PPP, I don't think they still have the clams in order to even get lead at this point. They're going to go into overtime by holding down that clam, and the E leader getting a little bit antsy as the clock starts ticking down for PPP here.
Yeah, overtime's halfway over at this point. And they barely just have an even man count.
Yeah, Rain trying to force a ball throw there, but ultimately going down to the Tenatech and Dooley player.
So it looks like the third game will be going to Bash, and now PPP has to not lose any more games if they want to get third.
Yeah, that's true at this point. Another best of 5 match here, and all it's going to take is one more best of 7. My apologies, best of 7. And it's going to take just 1 or 2 more games here for Bash to ultimately get that third place win over PPP. PPP has shown themselves to be a strong team overall, and that they can get the necessary pushes to ultimately win a match. But as we see with Splatzone's Mako, it's gonna possibly be a little bit difficult for them to regain that pressure if they don't have the necessary paint, which has been sort of a struggle with them so far.
Well, I think for Splatzone's Mako, if they play kind of a very stally comp, they're able to get missiles out, keep that leader set up. If they can keep an eye on where everybody is and respond to that properly, I don't think they should have an issue once they get control. The issue with that sort of playstyle is it's very hard to retake, so they have to be very disciplined about their defense in order to win the game.
Yeah, exactly. Overall, I think we're going to see a possibility here for PPP to get that pressure back on Bash and lead us into a 2 points on each side situation. Although I do think with the power from Warmonk and just the whole roster of Bash, we're going to see possibly a steamroll moving forward, I think, in particular.
I mean, if the other team, PPP, realizes that and kind of pays attention to that and responds to that properly, I think they can prevent that. But if they don't pay attention to that, that is very much a possibility.
All right. We're starting off this next match on Splatzone's Mako. We see essentially the same comp from Bash as last time, although we do see the C Junior instead of the Dooleys. And from the side of PPP, I believe that's essentially a similar comp as well. Both sides relatively well matched, although PPP does have the benefit of a backline here.
Now, the Flings is doing a really good job here, and I played this weapon for years now, but they're controlling this stack well, painting off that zone. Maybe if they can lay a few more mines, just pay attention to who's to the left and right, and just get the left and right of the zone painted to keep good movement opportunities for your enemy, that's what they should be doing. And it looks like they could do a little more, but they're getting a really good start.
Yeah, Drumar did a great job earlier of taking out that right stack for Bash, although he does ultimately go a little bit too far and goes down to the machine, as we can see right now here. The machine also taking out the junior player on the side of PPP. It looks like the zone may go over now to Bash's side. As
Nemo's on a tear right now. That's 2, and he gets the cap. Let's see if he can find anyone else in the process.
We see the E-leader trying to move up a little bit or just get in range of the players on Bash. And really, PPP needs to regain control of
They
mid
just
here.
popped missiles, and it allowed them to take zone. And I think Drumar just kind of popped a tri-strike to protect himself, which actually got a pick. He got 2 now. It's a 4v2. You should be focusing on zone right now. Let's see what happens here. And it looks like they are going to take it, and are they going to get that Flingsa?
Yeah, that Flingsa taking some really important fights and pushing back Bash as well as a result of that. We do see them ultimately go down here on the right stack to a 2v1 from Warmonk and Riley. Although it looks like Bash, not Bash, sorry, my apologies, PPP ultimately going down in a wipeout.
Something that actually just happened to that Flingsa there was that Flingsa took a vertical flick, and the vertical flick is a very slow flick with that weapon, and basically the vertical flick slow speed allowed the other team to move around it. So this Flingsa has to be careful about their timing.
Absolutely, and we see Nemo with his machine yet again causing havoc over on the left side of the map from the perspective of PPP. Yeah, Weabong also forcing the E-leader player out as well and causing a little bit of delay for Drumar. We see the splash here and really just all of PPP trying to come together to take out the players from Bash and reestablish their authority over mid and the zone.
Well, here I can see on the map here that PPP just popped missiles on Bash. Now, PPP has a lead, but it's not a big lead.
Yeah, and we see the zone it keeps going back and forth, really. PPP getting a few points here and there, Bash getting a few points here and there. Although, so far, we haven't seen...
It actually looks like that could change here. Bash's penalty just ended here.
Yeah. Drumar is going to have to take out Warmark, and unfortunately, he doesn't. Although we do see PPP in the meantime getting a little bit of a foothold over
PPP just popped missiles here. They're gonna... Bash responds with a tri-strike, getting another player in a wipeout.
Yeah, getting that wipeout is going to be really important as they continue getting points on the board for them against PPP. And Nemo setting up with his machine on the drop on the right side, causing some issues for Rain as he tries to get his E-leader in a good spot.
Well, I don't think PPP has time to take the zone, and yeah, that game's going to be given to Bash.
Yeah, that's going to be the game for Bash there.
And just a quick correction, this is actually a best of 7, so PPP does have one last chance to turn this around.
Yeah, PPP is going to have to do a reverse sweep against Bash at this point if they want to get that 3rd place. And as we have seen so far, that's not necessarily out of the cards for them. They had that Mako Mart game down for the majority of the time. And they did win that tower match earlier, too, with a KO. And also, they just had a good showing overall on Rainmaker Sturgeon and Clamboat Scorch Gorge, everything considered. So, we could see them possibly refine their momentum still and take off at least another game from Bash as we move on to Tower Eeltail.
I think it's possible, knowing how PPP is playing right now, and Tower Eeltail, I think is going to benefit them over benefiting Bash. And what's my thought is I think they very much have potential here to take this to a game 7 and get their footing back. And it really depends on if they're going to run a charger on that Tower Eeltail. How are they going to position that charger? Are they going to run a crab on Eeltail? What are they going to do with that? How are they going to protect that player from potentially someone like Warmonk or an Octobrush?
And just overall, I think it's going to be really important for Drumar and May to get those important kills against Bash as we move forward here. We did see some really great plays from the side of Drumar and May so far throughout these sets, with Drew ultimately getting the cap and the KO against Bash in that very first game, and Mayday getting some really important picks and allowing PPP to move forward into the zone.
Yeah, and you can see here, it looks like Bash is basically going to come out with a comp that they've already played, and PPP the same.
Yeah, PPP has taken off the Flingza from Mayday, actually, and exchanged it for a Neo Splash-O-Matic, which they've had success with in the past, so we could see a bit more pressure as a result as they take on 2 shooters and a Splash-O-Matic as well.
I will say that Flingza Neo Splash switch is actually something I've done myself, kind of up in some of the events I've done, which include things like Squid Junction, Proving Grounds, etc. But back to the game here, it looks like PPP is starting to take a lot of skirmishes, and I think Bash is really catching them off guard here. And I think these opening skirmishes are going to slightly benefit Bash in the possibility of Bash clearing that first checkpoint.
We see the Zipcaster Octobrush take out the Splash-O-Matic on the side of PPP. And really just Octobrush taking control of some key flanking spots from PPP.
Well, Bash is already at the second checkpoint. Now, they've got 2 people on towers, so they're a bit exposed to the Tri-Strike. And the Tri-Strike gets 1, although Bash got a wipeout nonetheless.
Yeah, and we see the members of PPP kind of trickling in now and getting a little bit panicky. We do see Mayday ultimately take out the Tenatech, which is a huge play, although ultimately going down to that machine, and JG also feeding into the machine. It looks like
They
that's
gotta
probably
watch.
going to be game.
Yeah, that's game.
Alright, they did stall out just a little bit on the point, right, their very last point, but unfortunately they weren't able to solidify a push against them, and they weren't able to defend quite as well as they may have liked to. And that's actually going to be the set for this Bash versus PP match for 3rd place. Bash ultimately taking 3rd place in the Invitational tournament, and PPP ending up in 4th place. Overall, a really good showing, though, from both teams, everything considered. We saw some really strong plays from both sides. We saw a lot of just overall fascinating stories even take place within this one set.
Yeah, definitely. It was a good set to see. I think there are some things, like, at the end there, I think PPP got a little bit they started to think too quickly, I think, and they started to think about the objective in a little bit too much of a way, where they didn't recognize their teammates at first, and that's something players can get into. It's a habit that a lot of players learn to break over time, and like I've said, a lot of these things are going to come with time, that I think this matchup will become more and more interesting if these teams do stay together.
Yeah, and we're about to head on our last break here just in a little bit, as we are about to head into our grand finals set match, where we're going to see MSU Firefin Couches play against MSU Frib, and they fight for 1st place in the Purdue Esports Collegiate Invitational Tournament. Last year, if you may remember our original Invitational Tournament, we had ITAP from Purdue, Cal from Purdue, and also the roster of MSU Firefin Couches playing as well. And we had an ITAP versus MSU Firefin Couches match then. And we're gonna, ironically, see just an MSU versus MSU match here. So, regardless, it's gonna be fascinating to see what happens. And yeah, that's gonna be it for now. We hope to see you all in just a few moments for the finals.
We are finally here with Grand Finals in the Purdue Grand Invitational. I'm Drumar, and I'm joined here by Fox.
Hi. Hi.
Alright, so MSU, Div 1 and Div 5 teams are finally competing in the Grand Finals of the Purdue. We may have underperformed a little. How do you like seeing these two teams play?
It's been really cool to see as a spectator and a commentator, big supporter of the Purdue team. So this is something that's really important to me, and it's just really cool to see that in-person connection that you get at LAN. You know, not just here, but you know, in any other LAN that exists. There's a really unique that comes with seeing people and playing this awesome game. And for you as a player, how has your experience been with this?
Oh, it's been great. I've had a lot of fun throughout the whole day meeting with MSU players, being able to play with staff and my team, difficulty in person. It's been a lot of fun, especially playing that last game. That was a lot of fun. We may have lost 41, but still, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so there's a sense of, you know, unity
Definitely,
and
yeah.
community as well, because you're meeting with the teams that you're playing against.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Great. It's a lot of fun. I was very excited to see that. So it looks like these teams are eventually going to be getting in the lobby and the game that we are starting with T on Inkblot Park Academy together.
Yes, TC Inkblot is a very classic tower map. If you were around in the Splatoon 2 competitive season, you saw this in just about every tournament. It is a very fun map to play, very different places for snipers to peek, ledges for people to throw bombs or sloshes over. There's a lot of room for really awesome plays on this map. And pushing checkpoints on this map is important as well. You know, it's very important to time your specials accordingly, pop them at checkpoints because of the way the tower path is shaped. That kind of strategy is really important.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see both these teams. We've been playing against both these teams in the first part of the bracket. These teams had some very good, especially the MSU Fire. They had solid coverage from teams. So skirmishes very good. Even on the MSU team.
Based on what you know on the teams and how you've played against them, what kind of comps do you think this team's going to be?
I see definitely on the Fire team. I could expect to Nautilus.
Okay.
I believe they did well. But I'd definitely expect to see
T-Tech for sure, yeah. T-Tech is really, really good on Inkblot Tower just because of how much blindness that it caused when you guys are pushing up to different checkpoints. Having that coverage in front of you while you're pushing, especially on the little flat that's kind of going into the home stretch, that could make or break your progress in the game. So I can definitely see a T-Tech coming here for sure.
Yeah. Special coordination is definitely key. It's very common to see a booyah on every checkpoint to just get a few more
Yep,
points.
that GG
That was pretty
booyah
much-
for tower.
We had
Yep.
that on both teams. Me and Nemo. Where I'm looking at him here. Slash GG booyah, of
That
course.
GG
Yes.
booyah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these teams, of course. Maybe there's a potential of seeing crab tanks, but it looks like we're gonna get straight into it right here.
All right, let's see what they've got. There's that Nautilus you
Yep.
were talking about. We have
Yep,
that
as well, you can see as
VF
well.
Charger and a Hydra. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see that because I play Hydra.
Of course, yes. Both these teams running pretty standard comps to what I've seen today, which is a Gal and an 89 sorry, on the side of Frib. Both teams do have a slotting machine, so start with Frib getting easy 2 picks by the Firefin team. Easy take of the tower in the first 20 seconds of the game. Frib is just all the way 3 down in the first few seconds, and Firefin is just going to start doing a push straight up here. Easy tri-strike right here, and they're just going to run it for a few more points as far as they can. Firefin all the way up into the front of the gun, and a tri-strike again as well.
Yeah, Frib kind of struggled a little bit with their positioning early on, and you can see how much they have to pay for that, because Firefin was able to push almost to that second checkpoint, which is pretty huge for like only the first minute in the game. We see Bell moving around with the end zap, going down. Frib is 3 down, so Firefin can still push this.
Yeah, Firefin got an easy push to 62 already, and they're probably going to go for a second chance. Frib trying to best to play defense. We see all 3 of them marked on their team, and 1 goes down. The Nautilus, 1/4 does also go down as well to MSU Nick with the Firefin. Firefin is a great weapon, and they go down. It's just picks constantly by each of these teams. Firefin is 2 down now, and then 1 pick onto Frib as well. That's 3 down by Firefin.
Yeah, Frib is going to take this tower straight into mid, where they want it to go, and try and keep this map control so they can counter push as well. Firefin is coming back with some pushes of their own. You see some fizzies and splats coming the way. They're probably charging their specials and trying to defend. This little machine over here peeking over, trying to set up flanks, seeing what they're doing. Frib is 2 down, and Firefin is just going to apply more pressure and push again.
Yeah, that Hydra on the front line, probably not the smartest play. Hydra just got easily picked off by the members of Firefin. Hydra's weapon, of course, is the back line, so you typically want to be towards the back of your team. But it looks like Frib is playing pretty well, getting 2 downs consistently, but not being able to get a push. They're playing solid defense on their side.
Yep. Firefin is having a little bit of trouble clearing that second checkpoint, which is a normal thing that you see in comp. Frib is doing a really good job staying at those bats and defending, and so they're going to try and move back into mid again, trying to avoid that Charger, because Charger just has so much power in that space. We see a Booyah coming from Firefin, hoping to scatter some of the other players on Frib, and they get on the tower and start pushing again.
Yeah, we have a Slosh Machine charged by Frib. We have a Booyah Bomb charged by them. 2 down on the side of Firefin, but 2 specials as well. Booyah Bomb charged, of course, by Frib as well. And we see Firefin with the classic double, triple strike. And one of them sadly goes down with their special and will not be able to get the pop off. 1/4 Numi is trying to charge that Booyah and take the tower a little bit as far as they can. And they do get the pick on one of the members of Firefin, and they do pop their Booyah right after. Try to just, words are hard. But Frib trying to get that push as far as they can, able to get to 82, and they land the super chumps as well. Nick trying to get a pick, and they do, and it's only one alive on the side of Frib.
Yeah, even though Frib is trying to push really hard with their specials up onto their plat, Firefin is still staying on that plat and just defending as much as they can. We see that Nautilus trying to poke up there on the right. 3 down again, go on the side of Frib. This Nautilus is probably going to try and jump onto their plat. There we go. And then try and add some more aggression closer to their spawn so they can lock out.
Yeah, Firefin is coming close to where they stopped on the second checkpoint, close to 53 points. Trying to get that pick.
Ooh.
Yes, they get that pick on the Nautilus. Maybe trying to get a few more, and they get 2 down onto Frib right now. And
ooh,
the
great
Hydra
play from
behind.
that machine.
Alright, there's 2 down on the side of Frib, 1 down on each team. Firefin is just trying to get that push even further, going all the way into the 40s, and they do get past the second checkpoint, and that's 3 down on Frib as well. They're going to ride this tower as far as they possibly can right now.
Zap stayed alive for quite a bit on bats, and they are pushing forward. Oh my
Great
gosh,
pick by
getting
Nick.
beautiful snipes in, and Firefin almost knocked out, had a great lockout. This is
I think that's going to be
yeah,
a
they're
knockout,
pushing
and
with rain. That's it.
Firefin
That's
takes
it.
Game 1. Firefin charging in as much as they can, getting those picks into Frib's base, and just riding the tower all the way to an easy knockout for Game 1.
And for those of you on who are at home watching the stream, there's a lot of energy happening in the room over there. You could hear someone popping off and going, "Let's go!" So the energy is absolutely palpable, and you can see that in this game.
Yes, definitely. And we got a whole bunch of live audience. The members of Bash and the rest of my team, Triple P, are watching as well. It looks like we're going to Game 2, which is Rainmaker on Sturgeon Shipyard and others. What's in 2? What do you want to say?
I have a love-hate relationship with this. As a support player, it's my job usually to carry the Raidmaker, and I have been playing this game competitively for how many years, and I still struggle with making that jump on to the left. I get really happy when my team, lets me push to the right. But that jump to the left is still hard for me personally to do.
If I know exactly what jump you're saying is to the jump to one of the checkpoints.
Correct,
Like,
yep.
Yeah, that jump is actually a little bit easier now that you can squid roll off the side.
That's
Makes
true.
it a little bit easier, but it's still easy for the other team to get
Yeah,
up.
and then when you push past that checkpoint, you still have to think about the timing of that bridge that
Oh,
goes
yeah,
down
totally.
as well. So there's a lot of coordination that goes into that. Just a lot of coordination that goes into Sturgeon, Rainmaker in general. There are, the snipes and the spinners in mid that you really need to pay attention to. There are a lot of ways a frontliner or a skirmisher can flank, so you are always looking around. No matter what role you're playing, you really have to stay alert. And here we go. We're gonna roll right into Sturgeon Shipyard
Oh,
Rainmaker.
the stamper by Nick. Oh, I'm excited to see
Yep,
this.
here comes that stamper, and then they're gonna have a heavy on the side of Frib.
Alright, so we see stealth jump on 3 members of Firefin. Nick choosing to use that object shredder on pretty much same as well on the side of Frib, with the heavy slot lane choosing to go object shredder. And that is one quick pick on the side of Firefin, getting that slot switching down, and that is another second one as well. Rainmaker is popped right now, so wondering what team is going to make the first push. One player is marking the side of
Yep, it's a little bit of a stalemate right now because 2 players on each team kind of went down around the same time. And Chef is just going to go and grab that Rainmaker. A few players on Frib
Does
were
get a
trying to
pick from
close
it.
in, but they do get a pick on that Rainmaker. They're going to keep moving right, even though most of the players are, oh my goodness, 3 down
Whoa,
on the
wow.
side of Frib. So they were able to make that work. They're going to go right past those super chumps and go straight to the checkpoint.
Are they going to get that checkpoint? They are not. Sadly, Frib is able to stop that push and stop them from getting that checkpoint. Looks like they're going to pop it and keep it there, trying to get it to reset. And,
Oh
and
my
a great
gosh!
shark by Nick with the Stamper. Oh, I love watching Stamper gameplay. It's so much fun.
I know, I just love watching Splatoon gameplay in general because of the crazy things that can be done. Unfortunately, that Stamper did go down. We have 2 down on the side of Firefin. This is going to be Frib's time to try and take mid.
Oh, and that's a wipe by Firefin out
Yep,
of
unfortunately
nowhere.
they couldn't do that. So Firefin is going to be moving through their court, try and clear that checkpoint so they can push further. Unfortunately, getting picked off again.
Looks like Frib is just trying to play defense here, trying to stop that Rainmaker from getting popped by Firefin. They are able to pop it, but there are still some members of Firefin that are close to the Rainmaker. It looks like Frib is just trying to stall out so that they can get it to reset. We do have the slot machine right here that does have their charge. And they sadly go down with it and they're not able to pop it.
They were able to get it reset, which I think was the smarter play. 2 down on the side of Frib again. They just kind of need to hold that space in their court. Throw their subs, get a special online. There we go. There goes that whale to try and kind of stop them, and it's working a little bit. Firefin is still pushing to the right, again, trying to go for that checkpoint. We see these super chumps that they're going to almost swim past out of that bomb, stop them.
Are they able to get that
Yep,
checkpoint?
they're gonna
And now
clear.
they finally are on the 3rd attempt, 3rd time's a charm for Firefin, able to get that checkpoint. And it looks like they're going to try to push it even further here. They grab Nick with that Zipcaster, trying to get a few picks and unable to do so. Firefin is all the way up to 17 out of nowhere as I was just talking randomly. Firefin is now 3 down, and the slot machine finally jumped out, but it pushed to 17 out of nowhere by Firefin.
That's a very strong push on the side of Firefin. So Frib's going to have to do a lot of work just to even get to where Firefin was. They're going to need to coordinate their specials and move forward. Unfortunately, that zap does go down on the side of Frib, but we have the machine down on the side of Firefin. This Rainmaker is back in mid, and Frib is trying to do exactly what Firefin is doing, pushing through the right to clear that checkpoint.
Yeah, and that is a Booyah Bomb by the slot machine, and that is a Fizzy Bomb that is able to take one out. And the Tri-Strike takes out another that is 3 down on the side of Frib. That's a wipeout
wow.
by Firefin out of nowhere. Both of these teams, one might be Div 1, one might be Div 5, but they're playing very evenly right now.
Oh, for sure. It looks like this T-Tech is getting their Tri-Strikes ready so that they can throw them forward when they're pushing. There we go. And the Rainmaker on Firefin still kind of in mid. The T-Tech is moving forward just a little bit.
Ender trying to push up and able to get a pick as well with their teammate. Super Chump does come out on the side of Frib, which does look like a defensive Super Chump, which isn't really how you expect it. Trying to push this as far as they can, a Booyah Bomb on the side of Firefin as well. Again, Firefin just trying their best, trying to get a few more points, and they're able to get back up to their 17 that they were at. Able to get to 7 now.
Oh, wow.
That Fred able to play defense and get that wiped out. And they are just going to reset that again, or maybe even grab it, and they are going to choose to grab it and push it all the way into mid and even beyond.
And had really good positioning when they were moving up to push it to 7, and this is something that I hope Frib can do when they are pushing to the right. Unfortunately, going 2 down, so they can't make that push just yet.
All right, and we do see 3 go down on the side of Frib. That is a delayed wipe by Firefin. We got Nick with the Zipcaster charge right here. He does a few burst bombs and some slashes, and still does have that Zipcaster. Might try to pop it soon. Trying to get right, yep, right there. Nick with the Zipcaster right there.
Yep.
Just playing a complete distraction right now.
Yep, and you have so many options as a Stamper on that little snipe up there.
Yeah,
For sure.
Firefin does have hold of the Rainmaker, and they take game 2 without overtime.
Well, well done to both teams, honestly. It may not look that way on paper, but there was a lot of back and forth that I really, really liked seeing. Firefin just had a little bit more aggression, and they were able to position themselves just a little further up to like really escort that Rainmaker. But good job to both teams. That was a very, very intense game.
Yeah, Firefin playing great offense as well. Not allowing that knockout. But we are finally going to one of the new Splatoon 3 maps, Clan Blitz on Storage Forge.
I personally like this map a lot. Like I said before, I'm a support player. I'm a junior player. I really like using the vanilla junior on there just to kind of help shield.
Yeah.
Yep. When we're doing those pushes, walls are really good for the same reason as well.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting if one of the teams has a gal in the comp, whether it be 52, 96. It's got the same sub.
Yeah, I did choose to go T-Tech on this game, and looking back on it, I probably should have just gone Splat for an aggressive pick, as well as Crafting could have been good for the game, but I'm excited to see what these teams choose to pick up. I'm going to expect a Gal of some sort, as well as that ends up with a Super Chance again. I could see that Nautilus by Chef again, and I could see Nate either go that Stamper or anything else.
I can definitely see the Nautilus too. We're going to just roll right into this game and see.
And Nick decides to choose with the Stamper, and we have a 96 Deco by Check.
There we go. 1 gal on both sides. So there's going to be a lot of walls back and forth on each team.
Yeah, and 96 Deco with that Kraken Royale. It's the only Kraken in this game. We have one of each new specials in this game. Teams are probably just going to try to get as many clans as they can at the end of the game. Clan economy right now is pretty even. Scratch that, it looks like they're trying to get a pick, and they do. Two go down on the side of Frib. And that is Super Chumps as well. On the side of
Yep, they're trying to pop these Super Chumps, take space, but they're just going to come right back in with these tri-strikes. You see that Kraken moving forward, trying to make an opening for this power clam, and unfortunately there was a trade for the clam holder, so their push isn't happening just yet.
Yeah, and that is a clear clan economy for Firefin, having 15 and 16 compared to Frib's 0. Two power clams still charged by Firefin right now. Nick with that Zipcaster as well, seeing if they could do anything with it. Have no idea what's going to happen here. There's a Booyah pop by Firefin as well. They can make anything out of it. Frib pops that whale as well as gets on a pick. Does one down team. They're trying to get for jumps with that Kraken, and they're able to get it. And they are able to open the basket with 2 power clams, able to push it down all the way to 50, and that's 3 down on the side of Firefin.
Yep, what happened right there is that somebody pushed in with that Kraken, and then everybody jumped in with the power clams, making the push much, much easier. It looks like we have the machine down on the side of Firefin, so this is going to be Frib's chance to kind of move forward. Probably not staying too close to the right because of that Stamper and how much range it has. T-Tech going down on the side of Firefin. Frib just needs to get their specials online and time them accordingly, and they could make an excellent push. They have more than enough clams to do it.
Yeah, this whole game is pretty much in mid right now. All 8 players are pretty much in mid with a whole bunch of special charts. Firefin has the Zipcaster and the Kraken charge, with Frib having that Booyah Box charge as well. And they pop the Kraken, a defensive Kraken by Firefin, and Nick going around with that Stamper as well. that.
3 down on the side of Frib, so mid is going to go back to Firefin. They still have a power clam, so they're going to try and push again, maybe get rid of that wall on the side of Frib.
That
Not
is a
quite.
good pick when Slosh Machine on Frib able to just shoot down all the way up on this huge Slosh Machine. Nick Zipcastering in with that power clam, not able to do anything with that. Sound economy is in Firefin's favor, 13 to 8 right now. We do have some special charge. We have the Booyah Bounce charge Frib right now. And we do have a power clam on the side of Firefin as well.
Yep, so both of them are just kind of fighting for mid at this point, and that Kraken just kind of sitting there, just waiting to see. Unfortunately, getting picked
And they
off.
aren't able to get the clam basket open with a power clam. It didn't look like they had enough clams to be able to make a power clam, but I guess they did. And they're able to open the basket and push their penalty at least down by 10.
Yep, that other power clam is just gonna, play it safe and stay in the back, which I think is a really good play. Nice wave breaker coming from that heavy. Gonna try and see if they can sniff anybody out and try and secure mid. Oh, unfortunately, the power clam goes down to a burst.
Ooh, unfortunate. Yeah, this whole game, both of these teams have been playing pretty picks on both sides. No, Firefin did have that good push earlier in the game, but for the most part, Frib is not going down without a fight. They're playing pretty much at their level, at Firefin's level. So,
Frib has 2 power clams, and the Gal has 1 of them. Hopefully, the Gal could maybe drop that
and Nick
so that
drops
they
down
can.
with a stamper, not able to get one pick. It just dropped completely from the skies right there, out of nowhere. That is a Kraken on the side of Firefin again. They do have a power climb. Looks like they're gonna go for a jump again, and they are able to get it, and they're able to get 2, and they're able to drop it down to 25 with 1 down, 1 left on the side of Frib. They are able to just dwindle down these points, able to get it down to 7. They just get a few more times, they're able to knock it out.
That Gal's trying really hard to get in there and secure some picks so that they don't knock out just yet. It looks like that push is ending.
Yeah, Firefin didn't have enough plans to get the knockout, but Nick just getting 1.
Oh my
hit.
goodness!
Just kills across the board. Frib randomly goes 3 down. And Firefin is just charging all the way up into Frib's zone out of... What's happening?
Yep, they're trying to apply as much pressure as they can because that time is running out. So they don't want them to have that power clam and get close to their basket.
Yeah, so Frib does have that power clam already, but they are 2 down. Belmo with the power clam going all the way around, but Firefin is able to open the enemy basket before they could do it, and Firefin takes game 3, and it is 3-0 Firefin match points.
That Kraken did a lot of work for Firefin. It really, really led those pushes, and it kind of made Frib scatter a little bit, and that's exactly what they were looking for. And I think that aggression with the pushes was really what helped steal Firefin in for such a strong win.
Yeah, it's a very strong win in this MSU. Firefin. Frib is down 3-0 Firefin. So this is game point. If Firefin wins one more game, they win the grand finals.
Yes.
So we are going to take game 4 to Slot Zones on Macdo Mart. Oh boy, I love this map and this mode.
This is a very beloved map mode by the community. A lot of people believe it's a very balanced map mode. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with the ledges and the stacks. Sloshers are infamous on this map, specifically tri-sloshers, just because of how well sloshers work when they're at a height advantage on the stacks in this game. And the backliners also get a lot of reach as well by staying on the stacks as well. E-leaders, Hydras, a lot of reach, a lot of power, a lot of ways that they can cover for the team.
Yeah, getting control of both of those stacks pretty much makes you have complete mid-control of the entire stage. And it's hard to get out of, especially if you have the E-leader on the top of the enemy E-leader on your stack. It is very hard to get a pick or two or try to push back into the zone.
Yeah, for zones especially, having control of those stacks is going to mean so much. So when you are trying to move in and take mid and secure the objective, you're really just making sure that you are pushing people off the stacks. Because once the stacks are in your control, everything else just kind of falls into place, and then you can start moving up. Those sloshers can go to the snipe of the enemy team's backliner and just slosh over and over and over again, and so the lockout just kind of starts falling into place.
Yeah. All right, and we are going into Game 4, match point of Grand Finals.
There's that try.
Pulling his tri-slots from new bow. Oh, yes, I'm so excited for this. We do have the slot machine by Newbie as well inside of Frib. Frib not really changing their comp that much. They do pull out a Nautilus by them. Yeah, Nick choosing to go with that E-leader instead of a sample. Comps aren't that different, but a little bit. That is an easy pick. That is 2 picks.
God.
Oh my god. Sandy with the squid bag. You can't be doing that. That's
Oh my
mean.
gosh.
Oh, that was a 20-second wipe by Firefin, and Sandy with that last double and squid bagging on their Div 5 counterparts.
Yep, you can see Firefin pushing all the way up. There are 2 people up on their street. That is huge, and that's going to cause a lot of pressure. That Charger is sitting there on their stack, hopefully to gain some dominance, but that Booyah Bomb did push them off just a little bit.
Yeah, but Frib is able to recapture zone, and Sandy again with another pick onto Frib. Prize Launcher all the way up, sharking into the enemy zone. Oh, is he going to get that?
Oh,
Yep,
that's a
easy.
beautiful combo.
Beautiful pick. Be able to get that one? No, and he's not able to get the tactic cooler either. And then oh, right. Do not squid bag, because if you die, you're gonna get squid bagged on.
Exactly. Karma
The
will
laws
come
of
for
equivalent
you.
exchange.
Oh my
All right.
goodness.
So Farfin does have control of the zone again. We're just running down those penalty points, and we do see two special pop on the side of Frib, trying to get a pick. They do get a pick on Nick. Sandy again gets a pick as well. That is a
Very
clean
nice.
double onto Fire.
Yep, this is going to be Frib's chance to come back and take the zone. We see the auto bomb and the whale just kind of pushing everybody out. And there we go. They take control again.
All right, and Firefin having penalty points at 51. That is very difficult to crawl out of, but I have a feeling that they can do it. That is 2 down inside of Frib right now.
And 3 down now, so it's really just the machine. Not quite sure where they are. They're probably staying back, which is the smart choice. That Nautilus is pushing up a little bit with that E-leader supporting. They have Rain ready.
Yeah, just like I said, having the E-leader on your, having the enemy E-leader on your plat is pretty much almost a death sentence unless they're able to get lucky and able to get a few picks to get back into the zone. Firefin is able to dwindle down their penalty points all the way into the less than 10. And that is 3 down inside of Frib, and they are able to get, that is a wipeout by Firefin, and that is another split bag. Firefin, Div 1, we love it. And they're able to dwindle down these points, and another snipe by Nick, and Firefin takes 4 games, and that is a sweep by Firefin for Grand Finals.
Yep, Firefin are your champions for this tournament with a very, very clean 4-0 sweep. And
All
plenty
right.
of squid bagging.
Yes. I'm gonna need to have a word with them. All right, that was a lot of fun to see. Having seen both MSU teams play against each other was a treat. Being able to meet all these people is just, I had so much fun today. It's a lot of fun. These games were great to watch, great to play in. Had a lot of fun.
For sure. It's so much fun to see these in person. And, folks, if you guys are in college and you have an interest in Splatoon and you want to escalate it and take that to a competitive level, other people in your school who also want to do the same, there is a spot for you. There is the Collegiate Cephalopod Association, also known as the CCA, and it has gotten pretty big within these last couple years.
Yeah.
So if you like what you saw here and you are a college student and you want to do this, join the CCA, because it will open up opportunities like this, and you could be right here on this stage winning grand finals just like Firefin.
Yeah, a little bit about CCA. Spring of last year, they had their first season, their first tournament. Had only 12 teams. And then season 2 was last semester in the fall. They have 16 teams.
Yeah,
And this
very,
semester,
very big
in the
jump.
spring, season 3, 83 teams from 60 different universities.
Yeah, so it's
absolutely
only going up from here. And I know that I'm sure it'd be great for not just the collegiate scene, but for the entire scene in general to have that, for sure.
All right, so I think that's going to do it for both of us here. Thank you so much for being with us today throughout this entire event. I'm Drumar.
I am Pak.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.